Well, I don't know about you, but I really like the idea of loving my enemies in theory. It's a really good idea. We can lessen the hatred, the violence, and anger in the world by loving our enemies and praying for those who persecute us. I love the theory, but in practice, loving someone who wants to harm us isn't very easy. In practice, loving our enemies is tough. And we see the result of not loving our enemies in the world every day. Violence, anger, and hatred fill the news. Violence begets violence. Anger is returned and escalated until it becomes hatred. When harm is inflicted upon us, we increasingly feel the need to retaliate with equal, or better yet, greater harm. Now, in our Lakeshore communities, we don't often use violence against those we think of as our enemies. No, instead, we choose to separate ourselves from those we think of as our enemies. We may not hate people within our communities, but way too often we fear others. And we let that fear isolate us. We let that fear and separation turn those we fear into the other. Those people. Them. Fear and separation and otherness allows anger, hatred, and violence to grow between us. And that fear becomes an emotional and spiritual violence we allow to harm our very souls. Now, I suspect most of us have family members we choose not to see very often. Someone I deeply admire and respect once said, "Sometimes our family members make it hard to love them." Maybe we don't approve of the spouse of a family member. Maybe we had a fight about something. Maybe we were oil and water growing up. It's so easy to let separation between family members turn into dislike. And it's so easy to let dislike turn into anger. It's so easy to let anger turn into resentment and hatred. It's so easy to turn a family member into an enemy. Our communities here on the Lakeshore have African and Latino residents who are living in both of our communities, Manitowoc and Two Rivers. Yet, there is very little connection between the majority population and the people who don't look like or speak the same language. We separate ourselves by the languages we speak, the color of our skins, and what we've come to think of as cultural norms. And then our political climate allows and sometimes encourages us to fear the other. I know for a fact that African American and Latino members of our communities are afraid of those of us in the majority. Documented and undocumented Latino families are moving out of our cities to places where they can be more anonymous because they are afraid. Pastor DeRio shared with me that 5 families that have been connected to Camino de Fe have chosen to move out of our communities in the past 3 weeks to some place where they can be more anonymous because they are afraid. African American people in our communities, they fear prejudice. As a consequence, we have separated ourselves. And the separation has turned into fear, and the fear has turned into our thinking into us and them, we and they, those people. Now, some of us have experienced violence in our homes. Some of us have experienced words that harm us. Some of us have been accused of evildoing when we are absolutely innocent. But when someone hurts us physically, emotionally, or financially, we tend to fear them. And that fear becomes anger and hatred. The fear turns the people into our enemies, us and them, we and they, those people. Now, Jesus was talking to a crowd in the first century who had experienced physical, emotional, and financial violence on a daily basis. Rome did not hesitate to use violence to pull people into line. Prejudice was rampant in the first century. As an occupied nation, the people of Israel were filled with anger and hatred toward the Roman government. Jews and Samaritans within the country of Israel hated each other. Israel was a nation that was divided by language, ethnicity, religion, and skin color. So Jesus was talking to a crowd who had learned to live separately from others in their villages, their towns, and their cities. He was talking to people who responded to violence, anger, and hate with equal and greater amounts of violence, anger, and hate. He was talking to people who had learned that it was way more than okay to hate their enemies. So Jesus told his audience to treat their enemies with generosity, gentleness, and compassion. He told the crowd to love their enemies the same way they loved their friends. Excuse me. Excuse me. He told the crowd to love their enemies and to pray for those who persecuted them. He told the crowd to love others the way God loves everyone, wholly, completely, and unconditionally. What Jesus didn't tell the crowd was how to do that. How do we love those we fear? How do we love those we hate? How do we love those who have harmed us? Jesus told us to love our enemies, but he never told us how to do it. First, I want to be abundantly clear. This passage does not tell anyone who is living with abuse to continue to allow the abuse to take place. And if anyone here or anyone online has experienced abuse, is living with abuse, please come talk to me. We will find a way to change that situation. Believing we must live with physical, sexual, and verbal abuse is absolutely unacceptable. I've been there, I've done that, and there is a way to heal. We can find that together. So the way we begin loving our enemies in our communities is by eliminating the separation language from our vocabularies. We no longer allow ourselves to think we and they, them and us. We no longer let the words those people slip from our lips. Because when we change our vocabulary, we will ultimately change our thinking. And when we change our thinking and our language, our hearts and our minds will eventually change. So the first thing we do is eliminate that separation language from our communication. And we come to the realization that we are all children of God. We are all brothers and sisters of Jesus our Christ. We are all made in the image and likeness of God. First step, vocabulary. Second step, we in the majority must eliminate the separateness. It is the role of the majority culture to reach out in love and friendship to those whose language, race, culture, and ethnicity is different from ours. It is the job of the people of faith to extend a hand of friendship. It's our job to build relationships. It's our role to create partnerships. Because reaching out to one another in friendship is a way to turn enemies and people we fear into potential friends and allies. The 3-on-3 basketball tournament that we are planning with the city this summer is a way to begin eliminating that separateness. We had our first meeting this morning. Thank you to the women who showed up. Man, where were you? The next meeting is Sunday, the second Sunday and the fourth Sunday of March, 9:45. Hopefully my office will be too small to hold everyone who wants to be involved. So we eliminate the separateness. So this is our assignment. We greet everyone we see, whether we know them or not. We greet everyone we see, whether we know them or not. When we see someone we think of as the other, especially when we think of someone we think of as the other, we smile, look them in the eyes, and say hi. I know most of us tend to look to the ground. Sometimes we walk to the other side of the street. Sometimes we hug the wall or the curb. But if we just look someone in the eye that we think of as the other, smile, say hi, how you doing? Invariably, we will get a positive response. Invariably, those people will smile and say, how you doing back? Now, the other thing we can do is to, on a beautiful day like this, Take a walk in the part of the community we don't normally take a walk in. Say hi to the people who are outside. Even better, if there are children outside playing, stop and play with the children, because I guarantee if we stop and play with the children in a yard, the adults will come out. Which is our opportunity to go up, smile, introduce ourselves, shake our hand and say, "Hi, I'm Carly. I just love playing with your kids. Thank you for the opportunity." Always say thank you for the opportunity. Because parents don't expect that. They're worried, aren't they? We to them are the other. So we go up, talk, smile, and just ever so slightly begin to close that feeling of separation. Ever so slightly, we begin to develop a relationship. Ever so slightly, we become more connected. Well, let's bring it closer to home. We, as members of Lakeshore congregation, must go out of our way to greet our Latino brothers and sisters at church and in the community with love and openness. We can start by sitting at the same table during coffee time. Even if we don't speak the same language, just by sitting down, smiling, and saying hi, I guarantee every Spanish-speaking person in this area knows basic English. They know how to say hi, how are you, good. We can learn basic Spanish. Hi is hola.
Hola.
¿Cómo está?
¿Cómo está?
Which means how are you? Bueno, gracias. Good, thank you.
Bueno, gracias.
That's all it takes. Imelda, that's all it takes, right? Just a little effort to reach out and to be friendly. Just a little effort to close the gap. We can work to eliminate fear and separation in our community and in our congregation by just being friendly. Let's bring it even closer to home. If there's a rift in our families, it's time to extend the hand of peace by sending a card, making a phone call, or perhaps scheduling a visit, a time to talk. Because, friends, it's time to end the separations. It's time to turn our enemies into our friends. Because the more we connect with others, the less afraid we all become. The more we connect with others, the more the separation grows closer, and those we once thought of as enemies become friends. Friendship overcomes fear, anger, hatred, and violence. I love the idea of loving our enemies. The rub comes when we put it into practice. When we begin to love our enemies, we will take the step to eliminate the separation. And as we eliminate the separation, we will begin to heal the violence and the anger and the hatred. When we reach out to one another, we take small steps toward loving others the way God loves us. We take small steps toward achieving God's peace. Amen.
Amen.